So, hello and welcome back to the Champ.ie Christmas special. The music is on. No Stilton cheese this year, but we have Ronan Groome, we have Mr. Mike Vince, and we are going to preview the Christmas action. We have a fantastic show coming up, and just to let listeners know, we'll have that big giveaway, thanks to Thomas Coyle, at the end of the show. It's a win your own racehorse, 20% share in that mark has plenty of interest, over 240 entries across Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. We also have a lovely little treat for podcast listeners as we got down to HQ Closutton to interview Patrick Mullins and see some of the stable stars that are about to race over Christmas. We're going to kick off, lads, with the King George on, as the English call it, Mike Vince, Boxing Day.
Yeah, happy Christmas to one and all. And the mother-in-law joins me in wishing you well and wishing Barry a new romper suit for Christmas. It's a race which is all about Nichols. I mean, would you believe it? 1997, he won it for the first time with Seymour Business, and then has won it now. He's trying to win it for the 12th time. Which way do we go? I go with Surname. I think Ronan's going to disagree with me. I think they got it wrong with Surname last year. He was bearing the scars of that scrap with Altior in bottomless ground, which did neither of them any favours. And there was a wow factor about his win at Weatherby. And there wasn't really, for me, a wow factor about Clanders, although he got stuck in the mud at Haydock. I'd love to see Bristol de Mai in this field. But I am a Surname fan, but I know that my learned friend is going to disagree with me.
Well, before we were going to preview the King George, Mike Vince, I was going to say we were going to stand for the opening hymn by yourself of O Holy Night, but Ronan Groome was O Holy Leg last night, because I think, Ronan Groome, you had a couple of beverages.
Just a couple down in the local China Garden here in Navan. Anyone from the surrounding Mead area will know the China Garden is famous around here. So I went out with a few of the lads. It was a much smaller crowd this year than usual, so it has to be done.
Keep that voice up, Ronan Groome, throughout the podcast. But the King George, 3 o'clock at Kempton on St. Stephen's Day. Who are you going with here?
Yeah, Barry, I think there's two ways of looking at this from a betting point of view. You kind of separate the race into two. You're either Clanday's Oboe, Surname, or you want to take one against them. And I kind of want to do both. Out of the two, I like Clanday's Oboe strongly. I think he should be clear favourite. He's coming here on the hat-trick. You know he's been primed for this. Ran an excellent race at Haydock behind Bristol de Mai. I think that's really strong form, as you know. And I'm just not convinced on Surname. I think too much was made of his win at Weatherby. And the level of that form isn't close to what Clanday's Oboe did at Haydock. Bombed in this race last year to all extents. I know they're saying he's a fresh horse, but I just think it's too easy of an excuse last year to say that the Ascot race bottomed them out. I think Clanday's Oboe is rock solid here. Should be clear favourite. The one I think of the others that's very interesting is Real Steel. As you know, I'm a big fan of this horse and cruised into the Gold Cup last season. And probably just didn't get up the hill. Now he's with Nichols, and Nichols is on record as saying that he's had a bit of some of the Willie Mullins horses that come over from owned by Jared O'Sullivan. He's had a bit of a head scratcher, and he took a while to get used to them. And Real Steel ran at Ascot in the Imperial Aura race, giving weight away, and he ran okay, but he looked like he would need the run kind of bombed out in the straight. And I've long thought that going right-handed like a flat track like this would suit him. I was hoping Willie might run him here last season, and he's running here now off a first-time tongue tie, second run of the season, second run for Nichols. I just think there's lots of scope there for him to run a big race, and I could see him going, being banged there maybe in the straight, and maybe he'd get outstayed by Clanday's Oboe. I can see him running a big race, so I've backed him at each way at 16-1. But out of the top two, I do like Clanday's Oboe. I think he's rock solid.
For me personally, if you were looking, as you said, I think you rightly said, Ronan, split the race up in two. If I was looking at an each way angle in this race, St. Calvados was one that interests me, stepping up the 3 miles for the first time. I think, it was an argument to be said that he could have maybe beaten Min last year in the Ryder. He was travelling like the best horse, made a mistake at a crucial time in the race. And, he is moving up to 3 miles. Speaking to Gavin Sheehan early in the season, he thinks he was meant to run obviously in the Betfair Chase himself, and I think his bloods were wrong at the time. So if he's here, prime them well, stepping up the 3 miles for the first time. I thought he was interesting. That's St. Calvados, 167 rated, so he doesn't have too far to go. And, if a step up and trip helps him, I think there is 20 to 1 available on St. Calvados. And coming on, lads, to the Cato Star Novices Chase. It's a hot looking race. Ronan Groome, had you thoughts on this?
Yeah, not overly, Barry. It's not a race that I think I'll be having a play in, but it obviously is a very good race. Usually produce a nice winner, something that might come back for the King George next year. Blue's done it nicely on his last 2 starts. I'm not surprised he's favourite at all for the Skeletons. The Big Breakaway I like a lot more, coming back up on trip, and Contenders has an excellent record in this race. And if the cap fits, is good Kempton form as well. So yeah, I'm jumping around. I thought if the cap fits might be the one I'd go on, but I don't have a strong opinion, so I'll leave that to my learned British friend there, Michael Vince.
Take it away, Mike Vince.
Well, I'm a Big Breakaway fan. I mean, I watched in horror at Exeter. I was actually trackside when he managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. It was a slow run crawl over an inadequate trip, and anything that could go wrong did go wrong. You just hope there's going to be a bit of pace, but he's a 3 miler. I think the one thing that Exeter settled was he wasn't going to be taking on Envoy Allen in any 2.5 mile Marsh Chase at the festival in March. He has to win this to justify his lofty reputation, and I think he will. But that said, at this stage, the 3 mile Novice Chase division's a mess. There's nothing that's come out anywhere on either side of the water that is outstanding. The Big Breakaway's got his chance. I just hope he takes it. He has got to prove it, but I think he will prove it. I think he will prove that trying to take on 3 horses over an inadequate trip, giving weight away to them, was a mistake. Yeah, he got some more experience in defences, but he wasn't winning that race at halfway.
Brilliant stuff. Before we come on to Leopardstown on St. Stephen's Day, Mike Vince got up with Sean Flanagan, a jockey who knows how to ride this course pretty well.
Yeah, well, it's obviously a very, very well presented track. There's loads of jumping down the back on the chase course. And then you have only probably 2 fences in the last half mile on the chase course, and it's a lot stiffer than it might look to the naked eye. If you stand at the back of the second last fence and look to the winning post, it's a long way above you. So there is quite a stiff finish to it. But yeah, it is a quite fair track. I would have it as possibly one of the best racetracks I've probably ever ridden at as regarding fair. If you jump off and you're lucky enough to get the box seat and you have a horse that travels, you have to do something very, very silly on it to get it beat. So yeah, it's a very, very fair, big galloping track. There's no hiding places. If you're riding the best horse generally, you can get it to where you need it to be.
I mean, for instance, 17 fences in the Savills over 3 miles is less than most 3 mile chases. You think of, Cheltenham is 20. So does it place a slightly different emphasis, do you think?
The Cheltenham fence compared to the Leopardstown fence, the Leopardstown fence, albeit there might be a few less fences, they do take quite a bit of jumping. You don't get away with many mistakes. They're a bigger, square, solid fence, and they're a very inviting fence to jump. But at the same time, they do take a lot of jumping. There might be less, but you need that little bit more respect as well.
And with the Paddy Power Chase and with all these big handicap hurdles that you have during the 4 days, how much does Lady Luck play a part? Because those enormous fields are not easy to navigate, are they?
No, it's a big thing, The chase course is a very, very wide track, and you can afford to give away a little bit of ground as regarding, like, if you reflected on Cheltenham, if you're 3 or 4 off the rail going around Cheltenham, you're giving away a lot of ground. If you're 3 or 4 off the rail going around Leopardstown, you're not actually giving away a lot of ground. There's 2 big long straights. You have plenty of time. But if you look at a couple of those competitive 2 mile handicap hurdles, you jump off there in the corner, you jump the last, and you have 1 lap. Like if you have 20 odd runners in one of those races and you're dropped in 7th or 8th, there's a fair chance you mightn't see a hurdle. The rider mightn't see a hurdle until he gets to the second last, or even maybe possibly to the last. You've got to really trust your horse. And hope that the doors open for you when you need them to open,
Interesting thoughts from Sean Flanagan there. The 2:15 at Leopardstown is the first Grade One. It's the Grade One Racing Post Novices Chase. Felix Stagey has come in for support, 7-4. Black Bow. David Mullins takes the ride as Paul Townend goes to Limerick. He's an 11-4 shot. Darver Star 10-3. Embittered 8-1. Franco Laporte 8-1, and Ben Rubin is 40-1. Ronan, it looks competitive even though it's a small field.
I think it's an excellent race, Barry. And for a long time we were wondering who's going to go here and who's going to go to Limerick. And maybe Limerick is a stronger race. Paul Townend is going down there to ride the Styrian for Longe. And Mark Walsh is going down there as well. But this is still a very good race as well. And Felix Stagey did it very well at Punchestown the last day. And the form got a big boost when Sizing Potsy went and won a handicap chase really impressively. But I just thought Black Bow was a little bit underrated here. I was just going through the runners there yesterday when declarations come in, and I was just expecting Black Bow to be in and around maybe 9-4, 5-2, and I think you can still get around 7-2 for him. And that's a big old price because I like the way he did it in Navan, and as Patrick Mullins said, Fences seems to have been the making of him. He was always a really well-hyped horse when he won his bumper as well. I think he was favourite for the champion bumper. It never happened for him over hurdles, but over fences he looked a different proposition at Navan. And I think maybe the whole Paul Townend going to Limerick thing instead maybe might be a factor in his price. The rest of the runners here, Darver Star, I was quite disappointed with last time. I thought he actually looked a bit slow over the 2 miles, and maybe 2.5 miles might suit him better. Franco Laporte is interesting, but I think it's more to do in his hurdles form as well. And Embittered and Ben Rubin both things to do. But Felix Stagey, I think, was the rightful favourite, but I do think Black Bow should be a bit closer to him on what he did at Navan. I thought it was quite impressive.
Mike Vince, would you agree?
Yeah, and let's not forget that David Mullins actually rode him at Navan that day. So he knows the horse, and that's important to me. I've always thought that the Navan fences are not dissimilar to Leopardstown's as well. I mean, he beat an armada of JP's. I think Glen Tuka, I think, was behind him that day. JP had 5 of the next 6 home behind him, and he jumped really well. And I think I'd love to see Darver Star for the Gavin Cromwell yard go well. But Black Bow is the one that certainly attracts my attention. And Patrick, I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, was making the point they've got an amazing amount of depth in novice chases. But Black Bow, bad news for Black Bow fans. Mr. Groome and I seem to be of one mind.
Yeah, Mike Vince, you mentioned Willie Mullins' team of novice chasers this year. I was, of course, a little bit disappointed I didn't see Energamine, but we will see him, I'm sure of it, in January. Black Bow, yeah, I think he did absolutely not a thing wrong at Navan. Let him out in front, let him roll, let him use his jumping. He's a course winner, and I think he might be difficult to beat here, lads. Full house for Black Bow. Coming on, before we come on, lads, to Limerick, I think it's a perfect time to introduce our stable feature with Patrick Mullins. We went down to catch up with Patrick ahead of... So Patrick, thanks for having us down to HQ, and delighted to have you on the Champ.ie podcast once again. Christmas racing, very busy. Let's start with the novice chasers. Black Bow and Styrian for Longe both entered this Christmas.
Yeah, Styrian for Longe goes down to Limerick. Right-handed, 2.5 miles, heavy ground to suit him well. We were very happy with him in Punchestown. He did jump a little bit to his right over the last 2 when he was getting up a gear. That's probably why we went down to Limerick. Although he did win Grade One Leopardstown last year, but look, he's in great form. He's going to have to take on Janadil down there, who's a very good horse as well. Now he has to prove that he's a Grade One horse, but he's the type we think it could be. So he won't have it all his own way. Styrian is probably the most likely winner from our point of view, but someone who didn't want to play maybe the short price, I definitely wouldn't put much on it at all. And Black Bow is one that you rode in bumpers, Patrick, and of course he was very impressive up at Navan over 2 miles. Is that, do you think, his trip? The way he fences, he seems to jump particularly quickly, and it was very disappointing over hurdles, but hopefully fences now can bring out his best form again. He's won around Leopardstown before. He won the Grade 2 bumper there a couple of years ago, and just the way he jumps 2 mile, let him gallop, give him his head. I think he should fulfil his potential finally, because he was very disappointing last year over hurdles.
Yeah, moving on to, I suppose, some of the novice hurdlers, appreciate a micromanage or two that I suppose caught my eye. Micromanage, of course, last seen in the St. Ledger. He looks an interesting type going of hurdles.
He's a horse we've been very excited about. He won his 2-year-old maiden at Tipperary race at Blackmore. He's been schooling since he's been 2. He jumps very well. He's a horse with an awful lot of ability. We haven't tried to hide what we think of him. He's just been difficult to train over the last 18 months. We haven't been able to get a clear run of him as much as we'd like. So we've got a clear run of him lately. He runs there in Leopardstown on Stephen's Day. Possibly might be better over further as time goes on. You know, he's a mile and 6 horse in the flat. They usually want 2.5, 3 miles over hurdles. So, but he should be well able to cope 2 miles in a maiden hurdle. So delighted to finally get him on the track. Really looking forward to seeing him run. Appreciate it. Runs in the 2 mile. I don't think 2 miles is probably going to be the best trip, but it's a Grade One. Obviously, Fernie Hollow's out, and Appreciate it. Has won around this track twice. He won that same Grade 2 bumper at Blackpool one a couple of years ago. Ballyadam looks very quick. Might he have an extra gear than our fella? Possibly. But we'll know more after this. I'd imagine he's going to step up and trip later on in the season. This will let us know.
With the ground coming, I suppose, softer as well, you'd have to think that 2 miles shouldn't be an issue for him.
Yeah, now look, Leopardstown never gets really soft anymore. The drainage up there is particularly good. I'd be a little bit concerned maybe Ballyadam might do him for a gear or two this time, but like I said, I think when he gets 2.5 miles, he's at his best. Ngolo shouldn't be forgotten about. He was a little bit unlucky in the Royal Bond. They went very slow. Ballyadam got to run the race. We didn't get a clear run. Again, a bit like Janet, if someone wanted to play, wanted a bigger price, I think he could be competitive.
And moving on to the 2 mile hurdlers, I suppose a couple of them that are entered. I suppose we have to have declarations still. But Concertista was a mare that I saw that was entered in the Mathieson Hurdle. She was impressive. Never come off the bridle of Fairy House.
She was very good. I imagine she'll probably go for the mare's race. Willie likes to keep them that way. We're quite heavy-handed in the Mathieson. We have Saldier, Sharjah and St. Roy, so I imagine we'll probably send her the mare's route. She's very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. Now, look, the last day, it was a restricted mare. It was a second season novice mare race, so it's 2 restrictions, so she has just a step up a lot into open company. Saldier is coming back from injury. He won first time out last year. We didn't think he was far enough along running the Hatton race or the Morgiana. I imagine he might come on for the run. I rode Sharjah work yesterday in the Carlow. He worked particularly well. He's won this the last 2 years. I think he's probably overpriced, a little bit forgotten about. But St. Roy is probably our number 1 hope. He was unlucky in the Morgiana. Look, he ran very keen for some reason, wouldn't we like him? He won the third last. Mark was faced with a decision whether to go on and risk him burning up and doing too much and getting caught late on and getting a hard race, or taking back, holding on to him and hoping to get a run. He didn't get a run. It didn't work out. That happens. I think he should reverse the form of Abracadabras and Jason. Well, I don't think Jason's in it, but I think he'll reverse the form of Abracadabras. But I'm hoping maybe Sharjah might be able to mug the two of them.
Chacun Persois, a nice winner in the heavyweight chase, and I suppose he comes to Leopardstown this year having had the run. How is he, first of all, and I suppose big hopes this season with him? Yeah,
he's hugely exciting. He's probably the best 2 miler we've ever had. Dermot Keeling, who rides him out, is delighted with him since Mallow. Willie just felt he wanted to get a run into him this year. He got beaten there last year, and we felt he blew up. He needed the run. It looked like he probably needed the run in Mallow as well. He wasn't hugely impressive, but hopefully that will bring him forward. Look, we'll be very disappointed if he gets beaten, but we have been disappointed before. So, 2
bumper horses that I was keen to ask you about, Patrick, is Cool Jets and Reality Check. Both set to go to Leopardstown over Christmas?
Yes, Reality Check was beaten in Fairy House. I thought he blew up. I thought he needed it. Sometimes when a horse is doing work really easily at home, when they get to the racetrack, then they're not as fit maybe as you thought they were. And I think that's the case with him. It was certainly the case with Appreciated in the same bumper last year. And Champagne Fever is another one that springs to mind. He got beaten first time out as well. So if they get beaten first time out, it's not the end of the world. He runs in a 2.5 mile bumper, which is the same route Appreciated went. I think he's very good. I'll be very disappointed if he gets beaten again. I think he's a good horse. Cool Jet runs in the 4-year only on Stephen's Day, related to Cousin Vinny. A similar type, small, slight, not a big chaser or anything. Jetway seems to be doing very well. Brandy Love was a very impressive winner a couple of weeks ago. look, he's a bit of a lazy, laid-back type at home. I kind of get the feeling from him that he'll be better on the track, so I'm looking forward to riding him.
Absolutely. Must ask you about Great White Shark, winner of the Cesarewitch. Could she be one that maybe could shape into a stayers horse? And I see she's entered in the Christmas Hurdle at Leopardstown.
Yeah, she's in great form since her last run. We've just backed off her, let her freshen up. Look, she has to step up an awful lot. She was third in the Martin Pipe last year, I think. So she has to step up a lot to be a stayers hurdle horse. But I think Willie's keen to give her the opportunity to do that.
Kenboy, how is he ahead of the Savills?
Yeah, Ruth Dudfield is delighted with him. He blew up in Thurles, needed it. Worked well yesterday in the Curragh. Look, he was disappointing all of last year. He never seemed to travel with the same zest. He used to be a very keen horse, and last year he never really seemed to pick up the bridle. A little bit the same with Thurles. He wants it really, really dry. That year he had the good year was that particularly dry winter, if you remember. And that's probably maybe the key to him, so he won't want any more rain.
And King of the Hill ahead of New Year's Day? Alboon Photo.
Alboon, I was thinking, what horse is King of the Hill? I think. No, Alboon's in great form. Paul Rhodes rides him out. He rode him in the Curragh yesterday. Was delighted with him. He'll go back down with his bucket and spade to the sunny southeast on New Year's Day. And there's talk that Mona Lee might turn up there now, maybe, because he can't go to King George. So that'll be interesting. But look, we stumbled upon that route with him by accident. It was, like I said, that year with Kenboy when the ground was very dry. We didn't want to go to Leopardstown on dry ground. It was heavy on in Tramore. We ran there. We declared him then in Leopardstown for the Irish Gold Cup. Ground was too quick, so we didn't run him. He went to the Gold Cup, he won, and we just said, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. We haven't won a Gold Cup in 25 years before that, so maybe we've been doing it wrong all along. So we're taking the Henrietta Knight approach, which, look, it's not ideal for every horse, but it works for him. So to be able to have a horse with a chance of being a triple Gold Cup winner is very, very special.
We'll just take a couple of questions, Paddy, from Twitter. Jackson asks, will Fly Smart or Figure Rock be out soon?
Fly Smart and Figure Out both met with setbacks last season. They're both back in training. Will they be out soon? No, they'll be out this season, but not over Christmas or anything like that.
Have we any update on Duvan? Asked by Paul Harper.
Duvan he got a setback again around Galway time. He's had his time off. He's back in pre-training. We'll try to get him back for the end of the season again. But look, he's just been tricky the last couple of years.
Tom North asks, how is Allaho? Will he run over the Christmas?
Allaho's in great form. We were a little bit mystified by his run in the fog, but David said he just made a bad mistake in fourth last, which sort of knocked him out of the race, and he left him alone then. So I'd probably draw a line through that run. Yeah, he's likely to run over the Christmas. It's not ideal. You know, I think he's probably a real 2.5 mile horse. He could run into 3 mile in the Savills and see how we get on there. But I think he's going to be more of a Ryanair horse than a Gold Cup horse. He might get away with the 3 miles on Leopardstown. I'm not sure he's going to be turned into a Gold Cup horse though.
And Adam 1099 asks, how is Deploy to Getawa, another Shibby Park horse? Will he be out soon?
Deploy to Getawa, very exciting horse. Got a little setback there maybe 6 weeks ago. Again, he should be out this season, but he won't be out in the next over Christmas anyway. And
Closutton's own Stephen O'Neill asks, what horse pays for the Christmas for all the Irish punters?
Like I said, I'd be very disappointed if Reality Check gets beaten. I think I'd be disappointed if he does. I think he'll bring home the bacon.
Patrick, thanks very much for having us up to Closutton this morning. Very best of luck over the Christmas and for the rest of the season.
Thanks very much, Barry.
Yes, the 2:35 at Limerick is the matchbook betting exchange. Faheen Novice Chase, a grade 1 on the card. Asterion Furlonge, 11 to 10. Pencil Full of Lead, 7 to 2. Colreevy, another Mullins representative. Danny Mullins is on him at 5 to 1. Janadil, 11 to 2. Mark Walsh aboard. And Assemble, 12 to 1. Ronan, if you thought the race in Leopardstown was competitive, this one looks equally so, if not more.
Yeah, this is an excellent race, Barry, and that kind of feeds into the kind of angle that I'm going to come at, because I think Asterion Furlonge is much too short here. I'd be willing to lay him at around 5 to 4 or anything kind of around that sort of price against these 4 other runners. So you can kind of make a strong case for each one of them. They're all kind of lightly raced novices who impressed, mostly probably Pencil Full of Lead, beat latest exhibition last time. I was half expecting Gordon to declare him for the 3 mile race at Leopardstown, but I think they've come here because of the ground. It's likely to be heavy in Limerick, as it always is. And on that case, you can make a good solid case for Collereevy as well, who won at this meeting last season on heavy ground. Janadil, I thought, was quite impressive at Naas. Was a good hurdler last season. I think coming up to this sort of trip actually will suit him. And Asterion Forlange, like everyone he's a nice bet for people because people will like his profile because he's going right-handed here. It's probably his ideal sort of trip. And everyone knows his tendency to jump that way. But just because he's going right-handed and he still jumps that way, doesn't mean that his jumping is going to be completely efficient. You saw that late on at the Punchestown race when he jumped to his right under no real pressure and gave up ground anyway, even though he was turning that direction when he was coming away in the straight. So I just think he'll come under a lot of pressure here in this sort of field with these 5 runners. And I'm more than willing to take him on at the sort of price that he is. The one I would probably top for most is Pensacola Led. I really like him. I thought his form to be latest exhibition at Punchestown is really strong, and I think he's another one who fences will be the making one. They paid a lot of money for him after he won his bumper, Brian Atchison of Robcore, and I think he could be the making of him. His over fences are really impressed with him that day at Punchestown, and I think he loved the conditions here. So take on Asterion Forlange with Pencil Full of Lead is the vote for me.
Mike Vince, I think Ronan Groome has his County Meath colour tinted glasses on. What is that? Is that an Arsenal Cup, Ronan Groome, for goodness sake? Asterion Forlange, I do agree with you. I think he is much too short. Collereevy, obviously a lot of people were touting her up for the Mayor's Chase at Cheltenham. Interesting, she goes in here against the Geldings. But Janadil was the interesting one for me. Thought he was impressive at Naas last time. Ran in the Albert Bartlett, of course, last year. And really, I suppose, shaped like a non-stayer. Back in trip, I know Willie was interested in giving him maybe a try at 2 miles. He said he was going to bring him right back down to the minimum distance over fences. He did start off over 2 mile 3 at Naas, and I thought he done it very well. Should handle the conditions, and I think he's very exciting, Janet, at 11-2, and he'd be my play here. Mike, had you thoughts?
Yeah, Asterion Forlange, we still remember the chaos he caused at Cheltenham, didn't he, when he managed to throw the Supreme away by jumping violently out to his right. I mean, going right-handed is probably damage limitation more than anything else. Patrick was hinting to me days ago that was going to be their intention here. And the other thing to mention, of course, is that the Limerick fences, they're not the easiest fences in the world. Those 2 in the home straight come quite quickly and they can find you out. And I would think also the ground is going to be extremely testing. Or at least the thing about Limerick is they've got 4 lots of ground, so at least they can use fresh ground every day as the week goes on. Otherwise, it's 2 versus if we plough the fields and scatter on the 4th day. I actually think Janadil is a better bet in this than Asterion Forlange. Although it is interesting that Townend goes all the way to Patrick's Well for just the 1 ride. And I think that is quite significant. I'm torn between the 2. But at that price, there's no way that it will to be carrying any of the mother-in-law's money, Asterion Forlange.
Lads, it just gets better and better. The 145 at Leopardstown. We're going to come back to Leopardstown for the Paddy Power Future Novices Hurdle. It's a Grade 1 over the minimum trip. And I'm very surprised, Ronan Groome, to see appreciated. I thought the Lawlers at Naas was a perfect target for him.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised as well, but it's probably as a result of the Fernie Hollow situation with him. It's interesting. I appreciate it was quite a short favourite for this when the news came out, and Ballyadam was about 7-2 shot, but it's flip-flopped around now, and rightfully so. Ballyadam is the Grade 1 winner, courtesy of his win at Berry House, and the trip angle here would appreciate it because they've always felt. I mean, Patrick has been speaking in various different previews to the season, and he's always said that he felt that appreciated might be the Ballymore / Albert Bartlett horse, and that the 2 miles might just be a bit too quick for him. Like, he's obviously a very good horse, and the form of his race down in Cork has worked out nicely. But he won a 2.5 mile bumper, I think, was either at this meeting or another Leopardstown meeting last season, and I think he just could get caught out here. Ballyadam, I thought, obviously has the form in the book. When you just take it on Hurdle's form versus appreciated, you kind of have to plot for the Elliott horse here, and I think they're quite confident that they have his jumping kind of sorted out from Fairy House. which will obviously make him improve even more. The one maybe just to mention against them too is I think a horse you like, Barry, Kescon Risk. Thought he did well to win that Fairy House. He pulled it out of the fire for JJ Slevin there, and I give him lots of kind of scope. He was bought by I think I forget his first name, Gretsch. He was the Gretchen Parkin guy. Mike, you might know more about that. The guys who own those nice horses in Britain last year.
Yeah, and Henrietta Knight is the person who's been doing all the buying for them, and she is Madame Shrewdy for me.
Yeah. One of the guys was
Gretsch, isn't he? Yeah, I mean they're interesting that they've spent a lot of money.
Yeah, they've got horses with
450,000 Ronan Groome this horse cost, and yeah, listen, he was a very impressive bumper winner, Ronan, last year up at Fairy House for Timmy Hyde, and as Mike said, Henrietta Knight, Mrs. Shrewdy, got the checkbook out on behalf of Mike Gretchen. Listen, I thought he was impressive the last day at Fairy House. He showed a good attitude. He was ridden far off the pace, and I suppose it wasn't overly hard, but the horse responded. I liked his attitude most. He didn't travel up there like a Supreme Novices Hurdle winner on the bridle, but really got down. I reckon there's a lot of improvement from this horse. I would play him each way against the field. I think appreciated the trip is very short for him. I thought he was going to be that Ballymore horse, and he may still be. And he may take a lot of beating in this, but at the prices, I'd take a chance on Kescon Risk. Mike, had you thoughts?
I'm going to go each way against the pair of you, and although he's finished, he's going to have to turn the form round. I have been an N'Golo fan for some time, and I think that it was maybe the track didn't suit at Fairy House, but his win at Navan the time before was impressive, and I think that he might just be able to come on a bit, and I think he's too big. So N'Golo each way for me.
Yeah, so the second race we're going to preview on Sunday's card at Leopardstown is a 255. It's the Paddy Power Chase, the big handicap grade B on the card. Over 3 miles. Castlebawn West. I'll give you a quick show of betting here, lads. Castlebawn West is 8-1. Paul Town up for Willie Mullins. Home by the Lee, 8-1 for Joseph O'Brien. Locks Corner, 8-1 for John Joe Neal. Captain CJ, Dermot McLaughlin, 10-1. Chance Manila Times, 10-1. Discordantly, 11-1. Far Class, 11-1 for Gordon Elliott. Dunvegan Pat Fahey, 12-1. 10 time, 12-1. Fitzhenry, the old warrior, is a 14-1 shot. Redford bar the rest. Tell you what, Mike Vince, you dissect this one.
Well, is Locks Corner a plot horse? Is my initial thoughts on this. Mark Walsh for John Joe, and a horse that has been able to run in this race because of the fact that he was already in Ireland and it was at Martinstown, having left John Joe some days ago, because obviously, sadly, in the current climate, there's no Irish horses at Kempton and there's no other British trained horses. Thomas Darby was hoping to run at Leopardstown. Liked his win at Kempton. Is he a plot horse? All the signs are that he is, because Mark Walsh is on board. And they haven't either got McLernan or Junior on it. And JP's got several others. You mentioned Fitzhenry's also got the Henry de Bromhead horse, hasn't he, in Manila Times in the race. So that's my initial reaction to it. Of the others, I just thought that Milan Native was pulled up last time, but his early form, but maybe he just goes better when he's fresh, and he might be the one of the Gillinstowns to go each way. But I just think that I'd be surprised if Locks Corner is ticking all the boxes as the horse that JP thinks will pay for his Christmas.
Ronan Groome, what did you like in the Paddy Power?
I like a couple, and I think Mark Walsh is on the wrong horse here. I think Manila Times have been quite sweet on for this race for a while. They went for the 2.5 mile handicap chase, the valuable one down in Limerick last season, and he finished second, and they easily could have went for that race again, but I think they've decided to it's all about the Paddy Power this year and come here, so it's very interesting he comes here instead. He won over 2-6 at the start of the season at the Stole, and looked like he was crying out for an extra bit of trip there. He's lightly raced, 7-year-old. he's £6 higher for that Listowel run, but I think he's coming into his prime now. As I said, he only has 8 runs, and I like what he did last season, mostly as a 6-year-old. So 7 going on 8, I think he's just hitting his prime now, off a mark of 136 for Henry Drumhead. I gave him a big chance. The other McManus runner I think is really interesting, the 10-10 for Dempsey. And Simon Torrance taking £5 off his back. Like there's huge hallmarks here for a big improvement coming up to this trip. All his form last season's over around 2 miles, 2.5 miles. Stayed on nicely over hurdles at Naas. A good handicap hurdle. I think it was the brown lad behind Barna Vadoon, and it just looks like a horse that's just been saved for this off his mark. If he stays, could be anything off 137. I share Mike's view on the Milan native. I think he was interesting as well. I thought actually he pulled up in the Porterstown, but he ran quite well. If that doesn't really make a lot of sense, but he was still travelling well going into the straight and just cut out. So maybe just coming down to this 3 miles is interesting. And I like the angle of Rob James riding him again, takes £7 off his back. As I said on the previous podcast, that's nearly a free £7 given all the winners that he's ridden over fences. So there too maybe at bigger prices, but I am sweet on Minella Times here. I think he has a big chance.
Just thinking, Ronan, isn't it a shame that Simon Torrance claims 5 and not 3? Because then we could have 10-10 carrying 10-10.
Yeah.
And what is Hannon? Is Hannon hoping that Roaring Bull wins again?
Yeah. I hope he did not.
Get your best Roaring Bull impression on the Groome.
My best? No, absolutely. It brings back bad memories because I backed Fitzhenry, didn't I? I was absolutely all over him. I thought he had it won. And then next thing, Jerry Hannon starts screaming.
Lads, done vegan for Pat Fahey here. I think this horse he's first and foremost. I think he's well handicapped. He's rated only £1 higher over fences than he is a hurdler. If you ever see him, he's a big strapping chaser. And I suppose he's disappointed me a couple of times. I think that one of the races during lockdown that was covered down in Thurles, you might remember, he went off an 8-1 chance behind 0-10. I thought that day was the day for him. Brian Cooper rides. He ran behind Daily Tiger. Reasonable run the last time. Just finished 12 lengths behind Daily Tiger in the handicap chase, Grade B up at Punchestown. That's just over a month ago now. Castlebawn West was in that race as well. I think through the lines of him, if you're fancying Castlebawn West, I think Dunvegan is very interesting up in trip 2-3 miles. It is competitive. Obviously, as you said, Ron. The other one in there was Discordantly. I liked him for the Tri-Town. I thought he ran a good race. The Jam Man, sure, how could anything get near that on the day? And, he carried him into the straight. He probably got a bit tired late on. I wouldn't give up hope on him either. Paddy Kennedy here, off 142. That's Discordantly. They'd be my 2 against the field. Mike Vince, let's come on to the Welsh National. You caught up with Paul Nichols.
Yeah, he's got the top 2 in this, and this will be a squelch-a-thon because Chepstow's had almost a case of water, and it's a case of feed me till I want no more, the amount of water it's had. It'll be a real test. 23 of them fences they've got to have to jump. Nichols has got the top 2. Let's hear what he says about them.
Truckers Lodge went up to Carlow and had an unseated look, and it was a bit unfortunate. He's been had an away day as well. He loved the ground. That improved enormously on last year. That was only his 4th run over fences when he ran in that. He's in great shape. Loved the ground. And Yala Enki, though he's got 11-12, it's just the distance of the ground that suits him. Obviously, he carried 11-12 at Chepstow early in the season, got beaten nose in that really good race. Only got as far as the first entry of the day, which in a lot of ways is a bonus because he didn't have a hard race. So, he's done a lot of schooling since. Look forward to running both of them. It's an ideal race for them.
I should have said top 2, of course, in terms of the weights, not in the market. And I just hope this is a good race because it's been run in memory of Colin Tizard's daughter, Kim, who so sadly died early in the year. It was a real tragedy, and you would love to see a Tizard horse do it. Evan Williams is very sweet on Secret Reprieve, the horse that won the trial over 3 miles. And, when Evan comes out being sweet about one, that often is the case. Ramses Tatai will have his ground, but I think you can put a line through his run at Aintree because he just hated the place. and it happens to a few of these horses. And Ramsey's to tie possibly each way for me in it, but it's a minefield of a race. It's a very competitive. I don't think it's particularly the best quality Welsh National we've ever had, but it's fiercely competitive. And as I say, Ramsey's to tie each way on the ground for me.
Now we're going to come on to Leopardstown under 28. We are speaking before final decks, but I'll give you a quick show of betting for the Savills Chase. 2-1 Manila Endo. Presenting Percy is a 4-1 shot. 9-2 Delta Work. Kenboy 6-1. A Plutard 7-1. Sam Crow, whether he goes 12-1 shot. Allaho 12-1 also. And it is 14-1 the rest as far as I can see it here. Ronan Groome, your, I suppose, big hope for the season. Manila Endo goes here. Does he take all the beating, and is there any value left in his price?
He does take all the beat. Just as you said there, you were unsure about Samker running. He will run here. We have that in the Irish field today. Gordon Elliott said he's going to run. And I'll get to him in a second because I do think he's very interesting. Manila Endo obviously is the rightful favourite, and he's done nothing wrong this season. The RSA form looks strong enough from last year, although Allaho was a bit disappointing and we haven't seen Champ yet, but it looked strong form at the time, and Manila Endo has been the kind of pioneer for it so far this season. Yeah, look, I think he's solid enough. He's still lightly raced over fences. He still could be improving, and he's the rock solid stayer. I think he'd be better maybe when he gets to Cheltenham even more. But here at Leopardstown, it's hard to make holes in his case. That said, it is a good race, Barry. You're looking at the likes of Delta Work coming back here. He always improves for his first run. He loves it around Leopardstown. And Sam Crow was kind of just the interesting angle into the race because this is his first run over 3 miles. So you're talking about the horse, this was when people were hyping him up back when he was a novice hurdler and things, they were talking about Gold Cups, and obviously the decision to go over champion hurdle route was the wrong decision to take, and Gordon Elliott has admitted to that. And he's only getting his first start over 3 miles now, and it's just interesting coming up to the trip. And in the Irish field that's out this morning, Gordon was saying you could easily see him travelling best of all to 2 out, and then it's a question of whether he stays or not. But it's interesting that Eddie O'Leary is on record and saying he thinks Sam Crow will stay 3.5 miles. So it's kind of a difference of opinion there. I think he could be worth a go here. I'm not sure what price he can get now. I backed him at 16-1. He's going to run. So if you're listening to this podcast on Christmas Eve, declarations aren't out yet. Gordon is planning to declare him. So that's, the price may come in when that does happen, and I think he was the most interesting here. He's obviously won the Marsh quite well last season. I think that form is okay. Mellon has ran well since this season, and just up at 3 miles, it could be anything. This could be Sam Crow back in the Gold Cup picture.
Yeah, well, another horse that Sam Crow's rated 160 run, and you said up to 3 miles for the first time. Another horse that, to my knowledge, is going to be declared. He is the only JP McManus horse in the race, and he's only a 5-year-old, but Facker Dudery, 50-1. Just a thought. He's going to run. He's going to run on Friday night on the Off the Ball show. The interview with Joseph O'Brien, he said he is going to run. Just the fact that it is the only JP McManus representative. He is unexposed over 3 miles. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Mike.
I thought it was Ronan that had been at the source last night. Is my initial reaction to that. I mean, I take it we are assuming, and you two will know more about this than me, that Monolly is not going to turn up here, and obviously with Manila Endo in the race. Because, of course, Monolly is still in the race, and Monolly would be a huge player if he does turn up. I just think...
They go to Tremor, Mike, I think, is the plan. They did talk about this race.
That's what we are assuming, but, of course, Tremor gets very wet. At the album photo show, of course, at Tremor. I'm only mentioning that because, of course, he is still in the race here. Kenboy second. That was a nonsense race at thirdish. Small field, 2 miles 6. Yeah, Presenting Percy won nicely on the day, but he had the race run to suit. I think Kenboy will come on for it over what is a much more suitable track for him. But it's going to be very interesting to see, looking at what Willie's got in the race, namely both Kenboy and Mellon. What will Townend ride? And of course, the storyteller, well, he won the Down Royal race, didn't he? But I think Kenboy will improve for his run at thirdies, and and goes to post, unfortunately for him, with my shilling.
It's not a strong fancy for me, Mike. Let me just say that. I just thought it was interesting that Ronan made a case for Sam Crow. Fakir Dudery, he is going to run, as I said, and 50 to 1. I just thought it might be a small bit big. Maybe he might run into a place or something like that. Christmas Hurdle is the 3 mile race at Leopardstown. His first day, or his Ronan Groome thoughts?
Yeah, the storyteller is going to run here. Barry, another one Gordon gave us news about in the Irish field today, which is interesting. I don't think it's the strongest contest. Fury Road is the one I thought was the most interesting. Just on the Albert Bartlett form last season is working out very well, isn't it? When you take into the fact what Time Hill's done, Monkfish has looked pretty good over fences. So was latest exhibition.
I think Ronan. I think he's a great bet here. Fury Road, 11 to 4.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like the lovely little prep run for this race. He ran in that 2.5 mile grade 2 at Punchestown. That race was on a week before the Hatton's Grace. I don't know where the race planners come up with this sort of stuff, because there was no one going to go for that 2.5 mile when you could go for the grade 1 that was worth whatever 100 grand a week later. And Fury Road turned up there and could have a nice soft race over 2.5 miles. He was only pushed out after the last one easily, and that would have left him lovely now for this coming up in trip. Gordon's adamant that coming up to 3 miles will suit him as well. So Jack Kennedy said after that race, a faster pace, a longer trip to run over. I think he's the rock solid sort here out of Gordon's anyway. Sire de Burley is there, and you can make a case for him. He did it nicely at Navan over 2.5 miles, coming up 3 miles to suit him as well. But Fury Road, I think, is the one potential, class horse that could emerge here. And on the Time Hill form, that's worked out very well this season. Fury Road finished ahead of him in the Albert Bartlett. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up favourite on the day, Barry.
Yeah, I think so. One of the bets of the Christmas period for me, Mike Vince. Would you agree with me or Ronan, or would you find something else in here?
I would chance one each way at a huge price if it turns up here. But I have to say it was only a handicap. But he got how impressive was Flooring Porter at Navan in that big grade B. And interesting, they've put this horse in a grade 1 for his next start. And I could see him running a huge race, only 5. Certainly will stay longer than the mother-in-law. And I think he might just be, the race might be run to suit, and he might go well at a big price. But I'm not necessarily saying he'll win, but he might be good for a little bit of the old Ichi Wazy.
Lads, coming on to the 29th, as I said, we don't have full decks again, but the Mathieson Hurdle is the big race on the card. It's, I suppose, St. Raw versus Abacadabras. Ronan, what way are you leaning?
Yeah, look, it's probably between the two of them on the betting. Barry, they finished first and second in the Morgiana at Punchestown. The one thing to say there was, and it's been well documented since, is the form or the way that race was run was quite slow, and they kind of quickened up after. And Mark Walsh got a bit of stick for his ride on Saint Ra, and I think a lot of people are assuming that he's going to switch the form here, but I wouldn't be too convinced. Abracadabras is a course and distance winner here at Leopardstown, and it's just not very reliable form to look at, and you can't be fully sure how it'll play out here if they do go pace, that sort of form will hold up, or which one will switch or whatever. Saldier is probably, he's probably the most interesting one, especially if the ground dries out. At 12 to 1, he looked a big price around Leopardstown. He's obviously won this race for the last 2 years running. Thought if he turned up, I thought that would definitely be the play here. Petit Mouchard as well in his first start for Gordon is interesting, or second start for Gordon, sorry, is interesting. And Aspire Tower is the 4-year-old taking on the older horses, and I'm not a big fan of that, but he did it quite nicely at Darren Riley, beat Abacadabras, and this was the meeting that he was very impressive at last season when he won by umpteen lengths. So I would be willing to take on the top 2, Barry, especially if Saldier runs. That would be my play. So that's the way I'm looking in. I think around 12 to 1. I think that's way too big.
Yeah, interesting. Aspire Tower, change of ownership actually, Ronan Groome. But the one for me actually was Sharge. I think he's rock solid, as you said. 8 to 1 apparently worked very well at the Curragh midweek, and I'm not overly keen on the top 2 in the market. I think the Irish Champion Hurdle division is quite weak, Mike Vince. Would you agree, disagree?
Well, I can't understand why everybody thinks that Abacadabras will turn the tables on Aspire Tower, who won on merit at Down Royal there was no unluckiness about it. And so to me, although the horse is only 4, and Aspartara, apart from that fall at the Dublin Racing Festival, has done nothing wrong. Was won the juvenile, the Grade 2 at this meeting last year. But Patrick gets on well with Sharjah, going for a hat trick. It's going to be interesting to see who ends up riding what, whether Patrick will get on board Sharjah or whether Townend will ride it. And that will depend, I suspect, on Sally. But for me, Aspartar is only 4. As I say, I cannot work out why people think that Abacadabras will turn that form. And of course, there's a horse called Curse Sublime down the bottom there, which is a horse that loves it around Leopardstown. But yeah, I'll chance Aspartar, I think.
Sharjah for me, guys, at 8 to 1. I think he is good value at a bit of a price in this field. Lads, before we come on to NAP and NB of the entire Christmas period, we've this fantastic giveaway sponsored by Thomas Kyle, who's on the gallops and who's asked me to do Santa Claus. We have the winner of the Win Your Own Racehorse 20% share in the Marquez, ready to go at Dundalk in January. The winner's in here, lads. Can we have a drum roll, Mike Vince?
Yeah, drum roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put your hand in, go on.
That's a bottle of wine. That's not the winner. But the winner of 20% share in the Marquez. There's over 240 entries in here, Mike Vince. Can you read that?
No.
Can you read it now?
No.
Ronan Stack from Dublin/Roscommon. So I'm not sure which county he's from, but Ronan Stack is the winner. We'll be in touch with him. He owns 20% share for a year in the Marquez horse, unnamed and unraced. Mike Vince, what an exciting prize.
Yeah, congratulations. Welcome to the Association of Racehorse Owners. If you had half as much fun as I've had with a couple that I've still got, one on this side of the water and one on the other side of the water, then you are in for a treat. Good luck. And thanks to everybody who contested. And thanks to Mr. Coyle, bless him, who's going to give you a fascinating insight. You've just learnt and you've won something that money can't buy. The experience of being a racehorse owner. Good luck to you.
He dressed me up as an elf, especially to deliver the news. So yeah, once again, congratulations to Ronan Stack from Dublin/Roscommon. And as I said, thanks very much to Thomas Coyle, who's on the gallops and can't be with us today. But yeah. So lads, coming on to NAPS and NB of the entire Christmas period. Mike Vince, take it away.
I'm going to say the NAPS is that you're going to end up on top of that Christmas tree. Though the nap for me, I'm loyal if nothing else. I'm going to nap the Big Breakaway to win the Corto Star. Although I'm very sweet as well on that horse of Gordon's, namely Ferrat Delaine, that runs in the Grade 2 on the second day at Limerick. And next best horse, who I think will benefit from a step up in trip, also on the 26th. ITV is showing this Weatherby, the Roland Merrick Springtown Lake for Hobbs and O'Brien. I didn't think he liked the fences in the Sefton, which was with the national fences. Stepping up in trip back over a park course, I think he'll go close.
Nap and NB for myself. Nap comes in the Christmas hurdle, over 3 miles. I think, as Ronan Groome said, Fury Road probably will go off favourite. He's 11 to 4 now. I think at the prices, he's not a horse I would have mentioned too much before on the Champ.ie podcast, but the form is working out rock solid. The Albert Barker from last year's had a run. He was very impressive over 2.5 miles on the heavy ground, and it probably is going to turn up on the softer side at Leopardstown. I don't think the race is that deep, and I think he is probably the most likely winner. And my next best is Kescon Risk. Very interested in him. I think in the future Novice's hurdle, he is 7 to 1 chance at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did. The top 2 in the market will be difficult to beat, but I am interested in this Kescon Risk. I think he could turn out quite a smart novice this season for Joseph O'Brien. He's my next best. Ronan Groome, Nap and NB.
Yeah, Nap for Flanders Oboe and the King George. I just think he's rock solid. He's been there and done it. He's going for his 3rd win in the race. Loved his run at Haydock in the Betfair. and I think he can make it 3 in a row for Sam Twiston Davies on his back again. And next best, I'll go with Minetta Times in the Paddy Power. I think they've primed him out for the race. Obviously, a lot of horses will be primed for it, but I think coming up to 3 miles, he's the right age profile. He's only had 8 runs over fences. Scope to improve coming up in trip, and just general scope to improve being a lightly raced horse. I think he's a nice bet in the Paddy Power at around 12 to 1.
There you go, lads. That's our NAP and MB of the Christmas period. Some of the NAPs and MBs that won over the last couple of weeks on the Champ.ie podcast. Chatham Street Lads 16 to 1, Benson 11 to 1, Sky Pirate 6 to 1, Warlord Mike Vince, you tipped him up as a NAP at 13 to 2, 50 Ball 3 to 1, and Kid Commando. That's just some, I suppose, of the winners that we produced on the show over the last couple of weeks. If you haven't liked this video, please do so and subscribe if you haven't done so to the channel. Once again, a big congratulations to Ronan Sack, who won 20% of that Marquez on race and on names. China Guard. Mike Vince, a very happy Christmas to you. Ronan Groome, the same, and we'll be back before the new year, I'd imagine.
Please God, happy Christmas to all.
And all. And keep your halo straight, Mr. Groome.